Alright, so Madden NFL 21 franchise updates. Thanks for joining me today on this. If you guys watched our top 10 video games list, you would have seen that in my list, this is Jeremy by the way, you would have seen that I listed Madden as one of my honorable mentions. I love Madden. I love the NFL. I enjoy playing Madden a lot. I spend hours and hours playing franchise mode. So I was very much looking forward to the news coming out to see what Madden was going to do with franchise. So before I get into any of my opinions, I'm going to go down the list. I'm going to just see what it says, just report what it says, and then I will give my opinion. Some maybe throughout may leak out, but mostly at the end. All right. So, we start here. Today, we're focusing on the updates coming to Face of the Franchise and Classic Franchise in Madden NFL 21. In the Face of the Franchise section, you will see the chapters of your career detailed out starting in high school. We are also sharing the storylines you can experience in your NFL career. Take note of these storylines as they can happen in different years throughout your NFL career, which gives Face of the Franchise even more depth. We're also introducing you to the cast of characters you'll meet throughout your career. For Classic Franchise, we've highlighted the updates coming to the mode for Madden NFL 21 on day 1. Alright, so Face of the Franchise Rise to Fame. Create yourself as a player and jump into Face of Franchise, where you will shape your career from high school all the way to the Hall of Fame. So yes, this year in Madden and Face of the Franchise, you will get to start in high school. You will start in high school, you'll make your way into college, play 2 seasons of college, go to the combine where you will get to run the 40-yard dash, take part in other skills tests to figure out what your draft stock is, and then you go to the draft and see who you get drafted by. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to cover this section here. So you get to start in high school, and it tells you right off the bat that your story begins to unfold as you're plucked from relative obscurity to provide depth behind the school's resident star quarterback Tommy Matthews. Your backup gig is shortly lived, however, as Tommy has been harboring a secret about his health, one that he shares only with you, leaving you with a crisis of conscience. Alright, so first off, right off the bat, I'm just going to say here, this says that Face of the Franchise this year is the exact same as Longshot was and last year's Face of the Franchise was. It's a linear story mode painted over with things that make it seem like it's not linear. Because this tells you every time you start this mode, you will be the backup with your friend, Tommy Matthews, who comes and talks to you about his secret, and you have to choose what to do. All leading to where eventually you potentially will probably become the quarterback. That's very linear. After you're done in high school, you go to college, and you have your normal signing day. And here's another aspect that shows that this is going to be a linear story mode. It says once you set foot on campus, the stakes get even higher as you not only have to deftly navigate a quarterback controversy right out of the gate, but also have to figure out how to appease your domineering old school approach, newly minted head coach Red O'Brien. So right off the bat, they are saying here you will have a hard time in your college career because you have an old school approach coach who is hard to appease. They're already saying you're going to have a very challenging 2 seasons when you play college football. It's not going to be easy. And to throw another wrench into it, after your first year, the coach will give you an ultimatum. You either switch positions to running back or wide receiver, or you get pack your bags and go to the draft. So you play quarterback your first year, and regardless of how you do, you will be pushed to either become a running back or wide receiver or leave for the draft. So you get to play 2 seasons, but your second season will be spent playing a running back or wide receiver. Now, it is cool that you do have that option that you will get to try to be a running back or wide receiver, but it's not something you get to pick to do. It's forced on you. You have to do it to play a second season, or you have to, after your first season, go to the draft as a quarterback. That's not a story mode. That is just a linear story that is forcing things upon you, and you just make a choice. That's not a branching story where you get to actually choose what you're doing, and the game adapts to what choices you've already made and fluctuates with you. So then you go to the combine and the draft. Like I said, you get to go through all the different skill tests that you have to do at the combine. You get to run the 40, which is cool. That is a lot of fun that they're bringing that back. Hopefully it works better than the last time it was in Madden. But that is cool. Now, the next big feature that is really cool that they're bringing into Face of the Franchise is NFL storylines. There will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 storylines. And that's really cool. But the one thing that's not so awesome about it is that they've told us now what all 8 storylines are. I mean, in the selling of a game, wouldn't you rather tell people, hey, we have some pretty cool storylines that are going to pop up in your franchise mode now, but we're going to leave them a mystery so that way you can experience them as they pop up. Like, they could even tell us how many there are, but not tell us what they are. Because right off the bat, these first 3 here, Franchise Savior, Next Man Up, and Understudy, they all have to do about being drafted. So through 3 of the potential storylines, you will only get to experience one of them in your actual franchise mode or Face of the Franchise mode, depending on when you were drafted. And that will be your very first storyline. Okay, so now you're saying it went from having 8 storylines down to 5. Because you're only going to have one of these, or 6, I should say. Because 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 storylines. You've now officially lost 2 storylines because these first 3 all have to do with the draft. The next 4 are things that could potentially can happen during your season, but they give you all the details of it. It has to do with rivals, has to do with you are on a team that has a lot of potential and Super Bowl expectations, and can you deliver? Or come back, like you got hurt, like Adrian Peterson, and now you got to come back from a career-threatening injury and see if you can actually regain your form. Or say you had a really bad season the year before, and now you're going to have a competition at your starting position. Like, all those things exist. And then this one here is going to be guaranteed. This will be your last storyline, and every time you play this mode, it's into the sunset. After you've had a long career, it's time to hang up your cleats. You feel like you have a little bit more in you, and the team says no, so you're trying to prove that you have what it takes. Like, that's going to be at the end of every single one of these before you end your career. Then they do show here the characters that are going to be in the game and who they're played by. Ty Sheridan's playing your career-long rival and friend, Tommy. He's from Ready Player One, if any of you have seen that. That's pretty cool. They got a decent actor to come in and do that. Then they did get Robert Patrick, who is T-1000 himself, to be the defensive coach that just is not someone that you can really get along that well with and that pushes you out the door potentially. Like, cool, they got some actors, but how much money do they have to pay them to get that? And then why in the heck is Snoop Dogg in here? Is this just part of the deal because they brought him in for KO Superstar? They're like, hey, we should have him in the actual storyline. For what reason? No clue. So that's Face of the Franchise mode. It sounds like it has a lot of potential, but it's a mode that you're only going to play a few times and you're not going to play it anymore. Then you get into the NFL 21 Classic Franchise updates. I'm not going to go into these one by one just for sake of time, but you have in here a lot of patches. New X Factors make their way into franchise. That's already expected. It's in every single game mode. Franchise and expanded wildcard playoff round to match what's happening in the NFL for real. Awesome, that's good. That is a good thing because I actually wondered would they actually be able to get that in since it was just announced in the past few months that they were going to for sure add another wildcard team. But that's expected. It would have been a disappointment if they wouldn't have done that this year because it already would have made their game outdated comparison to the actual league. Updated all rookie contract amounts to be more authentic to the actual draft rookie contracts for all 7 rounds. That's a patch. That should have already existed. That's been an issue. Should have patched that last year. Retuned every position's available abilities to better consider in-game effectiveness of the ability and archetype authenticity. So, that's a lot of big words. Don't really know exactly what that means. But to me, that makes it sound like it's going to be more difficult to potentially actually get certain archetypes, or I guess it's supposed to be, it's like whatever archetype you have, their abilities reflect what the archetype they have, which is good. That's a patch. So I guess that's more of what that means. But then they say also made the second ability unlock for most positions be 85 overall instead of the 80 it was. So now you're saying it's actually going to take longer to get some of these extra abilities though. And so it's like, why? Okay, why did you do that? At least explain it. All right, fixed multiple cases and logic of players considered for a dev trait upgrade at the end of the season not checking the correct stat types. Again, that's a good fix, but there are pros and cons to that fix because that means we had people who were getting upgraded last year who shouldn't have been because of what stat it was looking at, and vice versa, people who should have but weren't because it wasn't looking at the right stat type. So it might be something so negligible we're not going to really notice, but at the same time, it is frustrating. Just that's a fix that they needed to do, and that's what they're pushing now instead of fixing it last year. Next point is updates to all team back-end depth chart philosophy so they match the team scheme. And the one after that is added positions. Well, let me jump down to the one underneath. The one underneath is fixed issue where defensive playbooks and schemes for fictional coaches would be misaligned. Again, both of those are patch fixes, something that shouldn't have existed, and it needed to be fixed. And this other point, added position-specific offensive lineman archetype progression buckets for offensive tackle, offensive guard, and center to capture variance in overall formulas based on positional expectations. Previously, they were all pulling from the same progression bucket. Yet that was a big mistake, and that needed to be fixed. Again, it would have been a good patch fix. Because, yeah, your offensive linemen need to be working off their archetypes instead of it just being they're all pulling from the same bucket. It needs to be based off, okay, are they an agile one? Are they a pass protector, a run blocker? And that determines how things go. But that's also doesn't capture everything that's wrong because offensive linemen right now are all kind of the same, even though especially if they have the same archetype, because they aren't actually like just like you have rush right ends, rush left ends. You just got a lot of depth within the different roster positions. It's the same for offensive line. You may be a guard or a tackle, but you have tendencies within that of what kind of guard and tackle you are, and the archetype doesn't capture that fully. So, in all honesty, this is a big disappointment. I mean, we were wanting the coaching carousel this year. We were wanting fixes to the scouting system to create more in-depth scouting system. Like, for example, one thing I think with the scouting system that would have been really cool is to bring back in the aspect of having a potential and have that potential be based off of the potential the player has to develop. So maybe they have a normal development, but they have an A potential. So that means maybe they're going to upgrade to star and superstar or those other tiers faster because of the fact that they have that so much potential, even if they started at a normal development. But now, and then maybe you have some that started that superstar development, and that just means if they had like an A potential, it's not going to take for long for them if they perform to the expectations to become superstar X Factor. I mean, that would be really cool for helping with scouting because right now you can see someone that has a lot of good grades, but you draft them and they're just normal development, and it's all based off the fact that if they actually perform certain ways during the season and they get certain awards, then they may get that development trait at the end of the year. It should be based more off their abilities and how and then their stats. It should be based more off their stats than more just winning awards. And seeing a potential of a player of like what grade of a potential they have would help with that of taking the risk on someone that you see has a lot of good numbers but has like a C potential. That means you're most likely drafting a guy who has normal potential. And it's going to be really hard for him to move up, but maybe you really need that depth pick, so you go ahead and make that draft pick. Scouting system needs revamped. The trade logic and trade system needs revamped. How many years now have we been stuck with 3 things that we can trade away or trade for? When you have NBA 2K out there who gives you 5 or 6 options, and not only that, you could put some different people in that you're wanting to trade and ask for suggestions, and the game comes back with that rather than limiting you to a weekly trade block to get trade offers, which mostly only contain other people on the trade block or for the majority draft picks. And not only that, you got players that you can trade for very little, like Quentin Nelson, that shouldn't be happening, and then you have guys you can't trade for at all. Like, no one should be untradeable if you're willing to dish out like a whole bunch of first-round picks and other players. No one should be untradeable. Just a lot of things of features that we would have wanted that would have been really awesome that we're not getting this year. And my hope is that, it's giving the EA a little bit of benefit of the doubt. There's no reason to give them that, but you never know. Maybe they're just looking at the fact that when they asked for feedback after last year, they'd already dedicated into this face of the franchise rising star mode for Madden 21, and all their community feedback they got is more looking ahead to next year. If that's the case, at least communicate that. Like, be honest. Yes, you may lose some sales because some people aren't going to buy Madden 21 then, but at least you'll gain your fan base's respect because you come out and are honest, say, hey, we already dedicated a lot of resources to improving face of the franchise, so we're not going to be able to do a lot of the stuff that you're asking for franchise mode next year. But I want to let you know we are looking at that for Madden 22, and want you to know you won't be disappointed. That's all we're asking for, EA, is if you're not going to actually do something, especially when you came out with an article last year and someone on your team said you're going to put a focus on franchise mode, and then you don't put a focus on franchise mode for your next series in the game, be honest about what your plans are. Right now, you've opened yourself up to a ton of backlash, and you rightfully deserve it right now. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and what you're disappointed about or what you're looking forward to with Madden 21.